The movie begins with our main protagonist, Cairo, introducing herself. She's just turned 18 and admits to being different from most people her age. Cairo describes herself as a wealthy girl with big dreams but stuck in a small town. She lives in a large old house called Level Hill in the suburbs of Tennessee. Although she has plenty of money, she doesn't have much company because her parents, who are lawyers, are often traveling abroad. They stay away most of the year, leaving Cairo alone in the house. She has to walk through the forests to get to her high school all by herself. To deal with her loneliness, Cairo turns to literature and writing. She loves reading and writing, and literature is the only thing that gives her comfort. Cairo's only friend in school, Winnie Black, encourages her to join a new creative writing course. Winnie suggests this because she knows Cairo has a passion for writing. When Cairo joins the class, she meets Jonathan Miller, the English teacher. At first glance, Mr. Miller seems like a regular teacher with no standout features. However, Cairo is interested in the class mainly because Mr. Miller is a published author and she sees herself as a writer too. Cairo surprises Mr. Miller by revealing that she has already read all the books on their course list, showing her genuine enthusiasm. She also impresses him with her extensive knowledge of literature and her familiarity with Miller's own book, apostrophes and ampersands. Miller, however, gave up writing after getting married and became a teacher. His wife, Beatrice, who seems to be emotionally abusive towards him, became a more successful author. She constantly mocks Miller for not having the ambition to write something new. That night, Miller reveals to his wife that a student had mentioned his book and his writing. Just then, Beatrice gets a call from her work. After the call, the couple drinks some whiskey and begins to get intimate with each other. But then, Beatrice's job calls again, interrupting them once more. In the meantime, Cairo stresses to Winnie about her college admission essay. She has to write an essay for Yale University with the subject being the greatest achievement to date, but she cannot find anything worthy to write about. Even though Winnie points out that Cairo is the top student in the school, getting good grades in every subject, our heroine doesn't think it's a worthy accomplishment. Winnie then suggests Cairo write about a teacher-student affair, such as she intends to do so with the school's gym teacher, Boris Fillmore, who is Miller's best friend. She mentions how Mr. Miller often focuses his attention, particularly on Cairo during their English class. Winnie jokingly suggests Cairo seduce Mr. Miller and write about the experience in the college admission essay. The next day in class, Mr. Miller gives some extra attention to Cairo as usual and tells her to meet him after class. By this time, Cairo had read up on Miller's novel titled Apostrophes and Ampersands and had even memorized a section from it. The next scene shows Miller working at his desk. When Boris shows up, Miller asks him to join him and his wife for dinner later. Excited, Boris leaves the room dancing his way out. Miller copies his colleague's moves just when Cairo unexpectedly shows up in front of him. Cairo giggles and comments on his dance moves. Miller awkwardly regains his stand and talks to her about the latest assignment. Cairo admits to having gotten inspired by his book and even recites a section from it. She mentions that the words had a strong impact on her, so she remembered them well. This impresses Miller even more because he admits that his own work has never been praised like this before. He also recalls the lines Cairo wrote in a class assignment, showing that he's already a fan of his talented student. Miller then gives Cairo a writing assignment to create a short story in the style of her favorite author. As they talk, he learns about Cairo's lack of interest in everything related to Tennessee. He then suggests that she should go to a nearby poetry event with him where they can discuss the assignments. Cairo decides to attend the event almost right away. Later that evening, Miller, his wife Beatrice, and the gym teacher Boris hang out in a dine-in. Winnie, who happens to work there part-time, takes their orders. Beatrice then asks her husband whether Winnie is the student Miller was talking about last time. Miller replies that it's actually her friend named Cairo. It is evident that Beatrice is a little concerned about the whole situation. To cheer herself up, she begins to complain about her husband to Boris. She mentions that Miller hasn't made progress as a writer because for the past few years, he's been working as a regular high school teacher and hasn't pursued his writing ambitions. Since she is a busy and popular writer, often occupied with her work, she feels that her husband lacks the determination to be a professional writer. The scene then shifts to the poetry event to which Miller had asked Cairo to join him. The two start spending more time together outside of class, bonding over their shared interests in novels, poems, and Tennessean culture. One day in class, Miller gets a text from his wife Beatrice, who suggests they spend the weekend going away to a beach. Miller agrees to her idea, but before he can finish for the day, Cairo approaches him. She tells him that she has chosen to write the assignment to create a short story in the style of her favorite author, Henry Miller. Since Henry Miller has faced criticism in literature for his explicit language and expression, which some find offensive, Mr. Miller initially hesitates on her decision. But he trusts Cairo's writing style and eventually gives her the green light to proceed with her story. Cairo then learns that he is going away for the weekend with his wife, so she becomes quite upset. In an attempt to jeopardize the plan, she leaves her cell phone in Miller's bag before he leaves the school premises. When Miller arrives at his house, he sadly learns that their weekend getaway plan has been canceled because Beatrice cannot take leave from work. Suddenly, a phone starts to ring from inside his bag. It is Cairo, who is calling from her home phone. She pretends to have mistakenly lost her cell phone and suggests that Miller should return it to her house. By this time, Miller is also frustrated due to his wife's busy schedule causing a delay in their vacation. He then decides to drive over to his student's house. When he arrives at Cairo's grand mansion, it suddenly starts to rain. As he pulls up to the house in the pouring rain, Cairo, dressed in an elegant evening gown, walks out to meet him. She invites him to come closer, but Miller insists she should come to him. Then they share a passionate kiss. In the next scene, we see Cairo alone in her house, writing and contemplating the magical moment they just had. Inspired, she writes an erotic short story about the sexual relationship between a teacher and his student as her midterm assignment. She then emails her assignment to Miller. In the meantime, Miller and his wife are currently engaged in their individual works. Beatrice asks Miller to give her some personal time as she cannot focus on her work. As a result, Miller goes over to his old work shed and prints out the assignment sent by Cairo. He begins to read the erotic short story, after which he cannot help but get aroused. He then eventually touches himself while reading the story. However, Mr. Miller's attitude towards the entire matter changes the very next day. It seems that he is filled with certain guilt, having realized how wrong his actions were and was filled with a certain guilt. In class, Miller declares that the story is unacceptable and demands Cairo to change it. Cairo tells him that the story resonates with their relationship. Miller strictly denies her claims, telling her that they do not have such kind of relationship between them whatsoever. Cairo suddenly feels a pang in her stomach, making her realize that she is no longer important to him. Upset and hurt at the same time, she calls him out for his cowardice and hypocrisy. Miller then says that he was foolish for trusting she could write in the style, calling her a child. Cairo claims that he blurred the line of their relationship in real life, to which Miller says she is his student and that's all, and if she misunderstood something, then that's her problem. In response, Cairo criticizes him, calling him a mediocre writer, and warns him that denying his role in their apparent relationship will have negative consequences. Cairo then leaves the scene devastated and upset. She later drinks her sadness with Winnie and tells her about what happened earlier. Offended by Miller's rejection, Cairo shares her story with the school administrators the following day. She intends to expose a possible affair between a student and a teacher and make Miller face potential threats to his career. Consequently, Beatrice receives a call from the school administration stressing about the situation. She then questions if there was anything going on between Miller and the student. Miller assures her insistently that there is nothing romantic or inappropriate between them. In the next scene, both Cairo and Miller are summoned to the vice principal's office. The vice principal interviews them both separately regarding their relationship. Despite Miller claiming that nothing inappropriate occurred between them, he takes full responsibility as the adult, leading to his suspension. This also creates a strain on his friendship with Boris, who blames him for not understanding his limits as a teacher. Boris states that he knows where the line is and avoids crossing it in his own interactions with Winnie, who is overtly expressing of her feelings towards him. That night, Miller tells his wife about his suspension from the school. Beatrice is now more suspicious about the relationship. When she first heard about a student showing interest in her husband, she had taken it lightly, even trying to use it to add excitement to their own relationship. Beatrice didn't mind when Miller had told her about Cairo's story, thinking he must be enjoying the attention. However, her attitude changes when she asks Miller whether he likes Cairo, to which Miller remains mum. Now, she believes her husband had also reciprocated Cairo's feelings. This angers Beatrice, causing her to express pent-up anger and highlight the toxic nature of their marriage. The couple gets into a heated argument, both criticizing each other for their lack of commitment to the marriage. Eventually, Beatrice decides to file for a divorce. In the meantime, Winnie realizes the impact of Cairo's actions on Miller, so she asks her friend to withdraw the charges against him, but Cairo refuses to do so. Instead, she sees Miller's downfall as her greatest achievement to date and wants to mention the experience in her admission essay in a similar style to Miller's book. She is even determined to testify against Miller. Cairo eventually uses her experiences to write her Yale application essay, highlighting how she challenged societal norms related to age and sexuality. She reflects on the profound lessons she learned about the seriousness of mature relationships. In the end, Miller loses his job and the people closest to him. But despite hitting rock bottom, he unexpectedly discovers the inspiration for the first time in years and decides to write a new book. What would you have done if you were in Miller's position? Would you fall for a beautiful student like Cairo or reject her? Let us know in the comments.